I've lived in the same apartment for over 10 years. Same walls, same worn-out couch, same quiet mornings, and apparently, my landlord wanted me gone the entire time. He just forgot to kick me out, and somehow, that became my fault. Intro CTA. Before we get into this unbelievable story, hit like if you've ever dealt with a terrible landlord, and subscribe, because stories like this, they only get crazier the deeper you go. Trust me, you're not ready for what happens next. 10 years of quiet. There's a certain kind of silence that only comes with routine. Not the empty kind, but the familiar kind. The kind where you know exactly how the floor creaks near the kitchen, where the sunlight hits the same corner of your living room every morning at 9:17, where even the imperfections start to feel intentional. That was my apartment. 10 years. A full decade of waking up, making coffee in the same chipped mug, walking past the same slightly peeling wallpaper, and sitting on the same couch, pushed maybe a little too close to the wall. But it was mine. Well, not mine, but you know what I mean. It was home. I wasn't one of those tenants who caused problems. No loud parties, no late rent, no complaints unless something was actually broken. Honestly, I preferred being invisible, and for 10 years, that's exactly what I was. To my landlord, I might as well have been part of the furniture. Man standing scene 2. The landlord, or lack of him. I barely saw him. Maybe once a year. Sometimes less. Always brief, always distant. A nod in the hallway. A quick inspection. A few polite but empty words. Everything okay here? Yeah, all good. And that was it. No drama. No tension. No reason to think anything was wrong. If anything, I assumed he liked having me as a tenant. Reliable. Quiet. Long-term. The kind landlords don't want to lose. Or at least, that's what I thought. The life I built. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. Mornings started slow. Coffee, maybe some news scrolling, sometimes just staring out at the terrace. The terrace wasn't perfect. Leaves gathered there more often than I bothered to clean. Especially in autumn, when they piled up in quiet little drifts like nobody cared. But I didn't mind. It felt natural, real. Not everything had to be spotless to feel right. Inside, the apartment had its flaws too. A cabinet that didn't close properly. A faint crack running along the ceiling corner. Fixtures that clearly belonged to another decade. But nothing unbearable. And more importantly, nothing ever got fixed. At first, I used to report things. Small issues. Normal stuff. But over time, I realized something. He wasn't going to fix them. Not really. Not properly. So eventually, I stopped asking. The assumption. See, when you live somewhere long enough, you start building quiet expectations. Unspoken agreements. I pay rent. I take care of the place. You leave me alone. And in my mind, that deal was working perfectly. I even started thinking ahead. Maybe one day I'd move. Find something newer. Better facilities. More modern. But there was no rush. Why would there be? Until one day, something changed. The letter. It arrived like any other piece of mail. Plain envelope. No urgency in the way it looked. I almost ignored it. But inside? Legal language. Formal tone. The kind that instantly makes you sit up straighter. It was from his lawyers. I remember reading it once. Then again. Then a third time just to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding something. My lease was about to expire. For a moment I just stared at the paper. Then I leaned back in my chair, exhaled slowly, and shrugged. Because, honestly, this wasn't a big deal. The law, and my confidence. Where I live, lease agreements don't just vanish overnight. If neither side acts in time, they extend automatically. It's one of those quiet protections you don't think about until you need it. And I knew this, so while the letter sounded serious, it didn't feel threatening. If anything, it felt like a formality, a reminder. Still, I responded, signed what needed signing, did everything properly, no delays, no complications, and just like that, another 5-year lease was secured. Or at least, that's what I thought. The first crack. A few days later, something felt off. Not obvious, just a small shift, like when a room is slightly colder than it should be. It started with a second letter, shorter this time, less formal, and buried inside it was a sentence that didn't sit right. Something about the landlord's intention to pursue alternative use of the property. I read that line again, slowly. Alternative use? That wasn't normal wording. That wasn't just renewal talk. That sounded like plans. Plans that didn't include me. The realization, but not fully. At first, I didn't panic. I told myself it was just legal phrasing. Something generic. Something that didn't necessarily mean anything immediate. But still, it lingered. Why would he mention that now? After 10 years? After barely caring about the apartment? Unless something had changed. Something I wasn't being told. The uneasy routine. That night, I sat in my living room longer than usual. The same couch. The same wall. The same quiet. But it didn't feel the same. My eyes kept drifting around the apartment, noticing things I had stopped noticing. The wear, the aging, the neglect. And for the first time, I wondered, was this intentional? Had he been ignoring repairs because he didn't care about maintaining it? Or worse, because he was planning something else entirely? Days passed. Life didn't stop. Work continued. Mornings came and went. Coffee still tasted the same. But that thought, it stayed. Quiet. Persistent. Every time I stepped onto the terrace, I noticed the leaves more. Every time I sat on the couch, I looked at the wall behind it. It was like seeing my home through someone else's eyes. Someone critical. Someone who might not want me here. The doorbell. Then one afternoon, everything shifted. I was in the middle of lunch. Nothing special. Just something quick. The kind of meal you don't think twice about. And then, ding dong. I froze. No one visits me unannounced. Ever. For a second, I considered ignoring it. But something told me not to. So I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. And there he was, my landlord, unannounced, unsmiling, and already looking irritated. Something is very wrong. Can I come in? He didn't wait for an answer. That was new. In 10 years, he had never acted like this. Not once. And as he stepped inside, I realized something immediately. This wasn't a casual visit. This wasn't routine. This was something else. Something I hadn't prepared for. And as I closed the door behind him, I had no idea that this was about to turn into one of the most ridiculous, frustrating, and unbelievable confrontations of my life. Cliffhanger end. He turned toward me, already shaking his head. And the first thing he said made absolutely no sense. You should have reminded me. You should have reminded me. For a moment, I genuinely thought I misheard him. I blinked. Once. Twice. Reminded you of what? I asked slowly. He exhaled sharply through his nose, like I had just asked the most ridiculous question imaginable. "The lease," he said, waving a hand vaguely in the air. "The expiration. The deadline." I just stared at him. There was a pause. A long one. "That's not my responsibility," I said, keeping my voice calm. His expression changed instantly. Not confusion. Not reconsideration. Annoyance. No, worse. Offense. "Well, maybe not technically," he snapped, emphasizing the word like it personally offended him, "but you've been living here for 10 years. 10 years. You knew the contract was ending." I crossed my arms slightly. "I got the letter from your lawyers. I signed the renewal. Everything's done." "That's not the point." His tone sharpened. "You should have said something earlier." There it was again. That same absurd expectation. Something in me shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Just disbelief. Trying to stay rational. I took a breath. Slow. Measured. "Look," I said, choosing my words carefully, "your lawyers contacted me. Not the other way around. If anything, they handled it exactly how it's supposed to be handled." He shook his head immediately. Too quickly. "No, no, no, this is exactly the problem," he said, pacing slightly now, his hands moving more as he spoke. "This new law, this system, it's completely unfair to landlords." There it was, the shift. This wasn't really about me. This was about something else. The rant begins. He started talking faster now. Words piling on top of each other. "You have no idea how difficult it is now," he continued. "The regulations, the protections, it's all completely one-sided. Tenants have all the power. All of it." I leaned slightly against the wall, letting him talk. Because clearly, he wasn't here for a conversation. He was here to vent. "To think," he went on, shaking his head again, "that I missed the deadline by days. Days. And now suddenly I'm locked into another 5 years." He let out a bitter laugh. "5 more years," he repeated, quieter this time. I said nothing. Because what exactly was I supposed to say? Sorry? The blame game. "You knew," he said suddenly, turning back toward me. There it was again. That accusation. "You knew this was coming. You knew the contract was ending. You could have said something. A simple reminder." I frowned slightly. "And why would I do that?" I asked. That stopped him. For a second. But only for a second. "Because it's common sense," he said, though his voice lacked conviction now. "It's basic decency." I almost laughed. Almost. But instead, I just shook my head. "I'm not responsible for managing your contracts," I said flatly. That did it. The shift in tone. His posture changed. Subtly. But noticeably. The pacing stopped. The gestures slowed. And when he spoke again, his voice was different. Lower. More controlled. "You don't understand the situation," he said. And suddenly, this didn't feel like a rant anymore. This felt like something else. The real reason. "I had plans," he continued. That word hung in the air. "Plans. For this apartment," he added. I didn't respond. But internally, something clicked. "This location," he said, gesturing around vaguely. "It's valuable. Very valuable." Now I was listening. Really listening. "I've been in discussions," he went on, "with people who are very interested in converting this space." Converting. That word again. And suddenly, the letter made sense. "Into what?" I asked. He hesitated. Just for a moment. Then, "A cafe." There it was. Everything connect. And just like that, 10 years of small details started rearranging themselves in my mind. The lack of repairs, the ignored requests, the general disinterest. It wasn't laziness, it was strategy. Why fix something if you're planning to tear it apart anyway? I looked around the apartment, at the worn edges, the aging fixtures, the things he had never bothered to improve. And for the first time, it didn't feel accidental. It felt intentional. The audacity. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. You wanted to remove me, renovate the place, and turn it into a cafe? Yes, he said immediately. No hesitation. And you're upset because you missed your chance? Yes, he said again. At least he was honest. And somehow, I continued, that's my fault. There was a pause. A long one. And then, well, yes. I blinked. You could have said something. I let out a small, disbelieving exhale. The inspection. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he started walking further into the apartment, slowly, looking around, evaluating, like he was seeing it for the first time. This terrace, he said, stepping closer to the door leading outside, it's a mess. I turned my head slightly. It's leaves, I said. It's neglect, he corrected. I raised an eyebrow. After 10 years, now it's a problem? He ignored that. And this, he said, pointing at the couch, why is it so close to the wall? I stared at him. It's been there for years. The walls can't breathe like this. I actually laughed this time. Breathe, I repeated. Yes, he said firmly, as if that made perfect sense. The absurdity builds. This was getting ridiculous. 10 years. 10 years of silence. No complaints. No inspections like this. And now suddenly, everything was wrong? It didn't add up. Unless, this wasn't really about the apartment. This was about something else. Drawing a line, he started moving further in. Toward the hallway. Toward the rest of the rooms. No, I said. He stopped. Turn. It's not a good time, I added. I'm in the middle of something. If you want to inspect the place, you can schedule it properly. For a second, it looked like he might argue. But then, he didn't. Instead, he nodded slowly. Fine, he said. But his expression? That didn't say fine. That said, unfinished. The proposal. As he moved back toward the door, he stopped. There might be a way to resolve this, he said. I didn't like the sound of that. What do you mean? I asked. He turned slightly. We could adjust the contract, he said. Informally. That word again. Informally. Shorten it, he continued. 3 years instead of 5. I stared at him. You want me to give up 2 years, voluntarily? It would be better for both of us, he said quickly. How? He hesitated, then didn't answer. Which was answer enough. False confidence. And that's when I realized something. He had no leverage. None. The contract was signed. Legally binding. He missed his chance. And now, he was scrambling. For the first time since he arrived, I felt something shift in my favor. Control. I'm not interested, I said simply. His jaw tightened slightly. I see, he said. The first crack. He left shortly after that. No shouting. No dramatic exit. Just a quiet, tense departure. But as the door closed, something didn't feel resolved. It felt delayed. Day 1 after. The next morning, everything seemed normal. Too normal. I made coffee, sat on the couch, looked at the same wall. But there was a strange feeling in the air. Like something had shifted. Just slightly. The first message. Around midday, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened the message. Hello, this is regarding the property at your address. We would like to schedule an evaluation. Evaluation? I frowned. Who is this? I replied. No response. Second event, worse. An hour later, another message. Different number. Hi, we are interested in viewing the location for potential business development. My stomach tightened slightly. What? How many people had my address? Third event. Panic begins. Then, the calls started. One after another. Unknown numbers. Voicemails. We heard the space might become available soon. Is this the current tenant? Can we arrange a viewing this week? I stopped answering. Just stared at the screen as it lit up again. And again. And again. Confusion. I sat there, phone in hand, trying to piece it together. I hadn't listed anything. I hadn't agreed to anything. So why? Why were people suddenly acting like this place was already up for grabs? The realization builds. And then, a thought hit me. Slow at first. Then all at once. I replayed the conversation. His tone. His frustration. His proposal. And then the messages. The calls. The urgency. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. I looked at my phone again. Another missed call. Another message. Another person asking about my apartment, like I was already gone. And that's when it hit me. Not fully. Not clearly. But enough to make my chest tighten. Enough to make the silence in the room feel different. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. And as I sat there, staring at the screen, waiting for it to light up again, I realized something was very, very wrong. He didn't react, because he already had a plan. The calls, the messages, the sudden interest in my apartment, none of it was random. And when it finally clicked, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't trying to evict me anymore. He was trying to make me leave on my own. The realization, slow, heavy. I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even check the latest notification buzzing on my phone. I just sat there, because once the idea entered my mind, it didn't leave. It started connecting things, quietly, precisely, like pieces sliding into place. The visit, the frustration, the proposal to shorten the lease. And then, this random people messaging me, calling me, asking about a place that wasn't available, unless someone told them it was. My grip tightened slightly around my phone. No, not someone. Him. The pattern. I unlocked my phone again. Scrolled. Read every message more carefully this time. Potential business development. Future availability. Upcoming vacancy. Not one of them said confirmed, but every single one implied it. That the apartment would be free soon. That it was only a matter of time. That I was temporary. My stomach sank, because now it made sense. He wasn't trying to force me out legally anymore. He couldn't. So instead, he was creating pressure. Invisible warfare. Not direct. Not obvious. Subtle. Persistent. The kind of pressure that doesn't hit all at once, but builds. Slowly. Every call. Every message. Every stranger asking about your home. Like you're already gone. It does something to you. At first, it's annoying. Then confusing. And then, it becomes exhausting. And that's when people start making decisions. Bad ones. His plan, full reveal. I leaned back slowly, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't about eviction anymore. This was psychological. If he could make my life uncomfortable enough. If he could turn my own apartment into a place of stress. If he could flood me with reminders that I shouldn't be here. Then maybe I'd leave on my own. No court. No legal battle. No waiting 5 years. Just pressure. And patience. I let out a quiet breath. That's actually smart, I muttered. And I hated that I meant it. Chaos intensifies. My phone buzzed again. Another call. I declined it. Immediately. Another one. Different number. Then a message. Hi, we heard the space might be ideal for a small cafe. Can we visit tomorrow? Tomorrow? I stared at the message. Tomorrow? Who told them tomorrow? The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls. And 2 voicemails. I didn't even listen to them. I didn't need to. I already knew. By noon, there were more. Messages stacking. Calls repeating. It didn't stop. It spread. Like my number had been passed around. Shared. Circulated. The first visit. Then, it got worse. A knock on the door. Not the landlord. Someone else. I opened it cautiously. A man stood there. Polite. Professional. Hi, he said, smiling slightly. I'm here about the space? My chest tightened. What space? I asked, though I already knew. This location, he said, gesturing slightly past me. We were told it might be available soon. There it was. Out loud. In real life. Not a message. Not a call. A person. Standing at my door. Talking about my home like it was already his opportunity. It's not available, I said firmly. His smile faltered. Oh, we were told. It's not, I repeated. He nodded slowly. Apologized. Left. But the damage? That stayed. The breakdown begins. I closed the door and leaned against it. For the first time, I felt it. Not just frustration. Not just anger. But something deeper. Violation. This wasn't just inconvenience anymore. This was intrusion. Into my space. Into my routine. Into my sense of stability. My home didn't feel quiet anymore. Constant pressure. The calls didn't stop. Even when I ignored them. Even when I blocked numbers. New ones appeared. Different voices. Same questions. Is it available soon? When can we view it? Are you the current tenant? Each question chipped away at something. Piece by piece. Sleepless. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt louder. Every vibration of my phone felt heavier. I kept thinking, what if someone shows up again? What if this doesn't stop? What if this is just the beginning? The second visit, worse. The next day, another knock. This time, 2 people. More confident. More direct. We spoke to the owner, one of them said. The owner. Not landlord. Owner. He mentioned the current tenant might be leaving soon. Might be leaving. I felt something snap inside me. I'm not leaving, I said, sharper this time. They exchanged a glance. Right, one said slowly. That's not what we were told. Of course it wasn't. Panic. After they left, I didn't sit down. I paced. Back and forth. Trying to think. Trying to figure out how far this could go. How many people he told. How many would show up. How long this would last. The message that hit hard. Then, one message stood out. Different tone. More direct. We're ready to move forward immediately. Just let us know when the space is vacant. Immediately. Not interest. Not curiosity. Expectation. That's when it hit deeper. He wasn't just testing the waters. He had already started selling the idea. Emotional collapse. I sat down finally, phone in my lap, silence around me, but not peaceful silence, heavy, pressing, and for the first time in years, this place didn't feel like home. It felt temporary, like I was being pushed out, even though legally, I was completely safe. Acceptance, a strange calm came after that. Not peace, just clarity. I couldn't stop him from telling people things. I couldn't control the calls, or the messages, or the assumptions, but I could control one thing, my decision, and I wasn't leaving, not like this. Respect for the enemy. I leaned back again, closed my eyes, and despite everything, I had to admit something. He was smart. Not ethical, not fair, but smart. He couldn't win legally, so he changed the game. And for a moment, it almost worked. Chaos fades. Days passed, then weeks. The calls slowed. The messages became less frequent. The visits stopped. Eventually, it all faded, like a storm that finally moved on. Silence returns. And one morning, I woke up. No notifications, no missed calls, no pressure, just quiet. The same quiet I had known for 10 years. But it felt different now, because I understood something I didn't before. Final reflection. Some people don't need power. They just need patience. And when they can't win directly, they find other ways, subtle ways, ways that make you question yourself, your space, your stability. But here's the thing. Pressure only works if you give in to it. And I didn't. Ending. I still live here. Same apartment, same couch, still a little too close to the wall. The leaves still gather on the terrace. And no, I still don't remind him about his deadlines, because some lessons, people only learn the hard way. Final CTA. If you made it this far, comment below. Would you have stayed or left? And don't forget to like and subscribe, because stories like this, they're more real than you think.